You're listening to TGI Sports Talk with your host, Keith Angle, on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everybody. Keith Angle for TGI Sports Talk right here on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. How are you today on this Sunday, September 5th, Labor Day weekend? Long weekend for me. I don't have to go back to work till Wednesday, thank God. The real job. Wonderful day here in the Northeast yesterday. Top 10 day. I talk a lot about why we're here in New York State still. Yesterday's one of the days. It was just a gorgeous, gorgeous morning, afternoon, evening. Good morning, Dave Guyette. How are you today? First in the room. Yes, gorgeous day yesterday. Spent with wall-to-wall college football. The Yankees losing to the Orioles. Wild day in college football in my mind. But we had a nice day. We had some friends over. I was overserved. And unprepared today, but we'll wing it. We'll have a good time today. We got a lot to talk about. I'm going to rely on you guys, hopefully, to kind of help me along with your comments, and we'll play off of that as much as we can. We do have Mark Mancini coming on at 9:30 from Mancini Media. We'll dive into some college football outlooks with Mark. We'll talk some more college football too in the 10 o'clock hour. We'll get started with some baseball today. We'll cover the football. We're counting down to opening day, or opening night, I should say, Thursday night. We're only a few days away now. Tampa Bay and Dallas kick it off Thursday night. Maybe we'll look at some of those opening week games, but we've got all next week to look at that as well. I want to thank, I obviously want to thank the groups that I share this to, as I do every week. I know some of you have joined some new groups and had some issues with stuff getting, taken down or not posted. Guys, I promise you, when I've joined your groups, I've told you why I joined and what I intend to do. And it's certainly your prerogative. But if I share content, I promise you there'll be something in there of great interest to your followers. So thank you for the ones that do let me share. And those that don't, it's fine. I understand your protocols. Don't worry. But I do try to let you know before I join. I want to thank Jim Jeffcoat. Jim was my guest on Friday in the midst of a hectic time for him of selling his house and moving. So we spent 35 minutes with Jim and had a really nice chat. And we'll have him on again. He's also got a new show here on Northeast Streaming Sports, as we've talked about, on our YouTube side only, called J&B Talking Shop. He co-hosts that with Byron Williams, former Giants wide receiver. Good morning, Carlos. Listen, Carlos, before I go on, I did find yesterday I was on, I don't remember which site I was on, NFL shops, they're all the same. Where you buy your wearables, right? You can get Cam Newton jerseys really, really cheap. Good morning, all. Good morning, Rick Sherlock. Carlos Chavez, was any defense played by the Dogs? I'll tell you what, I've talked about. Good morning, Anthony Price. How are you today? I've talked a lot about the lack of college defense and football in general. College football last year was atrocious. Maybe it was a COVID thing. And we'll look at some of the scores. There's still some pretty high-scoring games, but there was certainly some great defense played in that Clemson game for sure. Rick better strap on his boots before they start playing in the SEC. Carlos, well, I have to give Carlos kudos. I'm not in my college football segment, but we're still in the opening, right? Carlos has been bashing the ACC, and after 1 week, I can't see where he's wrong yet. It's 1 week, things can change, but North Carolina with a horrible performance Thursday night, Miami with a horrible performance yesterday, Clemson with a horrible performance last night. Wake Forest did thump Old Dominion. I think it was Old Dominion. But it's not looking good for the ACC after 1 week anyway. I will tell you, it's funny too, and I'll get into this later. And I spent my Wednesday night show, and Carlos or Rick, you guys were there. I pretty much talked about North Carolina being overranked, how they were going in to play in a really tough road environment in Blacksburg, Virginia. Tough to come in there when Virginia Tech isn't any good at all. Tough to come in there as an underdog, but to come in there as a road favorite at 5.5 points, it was a tough spot for North Carolina. And after doing all that, I turn around Friday night and I bet North Carolina. Ugly. Oops, what's Rick got here? We got that. Carlos, Clemson will begin his downfall sooner than later. We'll see. I mean, again, one game. You know, sometimes it takes time to adjust to new personnel, unless you're Alabama playing that horrendous Miami defense. Florida State and Syracuse will not be enough to hold up the lead. Oh, Carlos, you cracked me up, man. If they're counting on Syracuse, ooh. Listen, I will tell you, I'm going to jump to baseball here in a second, guys, and we'll get back to college football. I want to kind of do more college football as we lead into Mark Mancini at 10:30. I like Florida State tonight. Notre Dame's had a lot of key losses as well, quarterback, offensive line, and I do not think they're going to be as cohesive a unit out of the gate as we saw at Alabama yesterday. So anyway, we'll get back to that. I think I could be putting a couple shekels on Florida State today. All right, guys, let's move on to let's talk some baseball for a little bit. We'll take a look at the division races. I want to talk a little. There's a couple other things I want to chat a little bit about. Just looking for right banner. Close enough. Help me out, guys. Rough night for Keith last night, man. I was way overserved. I got to talk to the bartender at my house. We had a lot of fun watching college football, even though the game we were watching early was a blowout. UCLA, I'm talking college football. We'll get back to that. Just a great day yesterday. Yankees, not so much. They lost yesterday to the horrendous Orioles. Really, you can't be losing these games. They got a. I guess they're a half game technically ahead of the Red Sox in the first wild card, and the second. I mean, what they're really playing for would be to, host that wild card game. They've got a 5-game lead, I believe, close to a 5-game lead on the A's and the Mariners. But this is important. These are important. All these games are important. I don't think they can catch the Rays now, but Yankees almost got no hit. I know. I mean, this is a team that's 50 games under 500. Man, it's September. You're in a pennant race. 313 winning percentage for the Orioles. How bad? How many years are the Orioles going to be this bad? Are there any Oriole fans out there? I know one. I mean, this is a storied franchise. Maybe not far back in history, but you look in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, this is a great franchise. Even the 90s. Oh, my God. Awful. Really just awful. I mean, I've talked about what a dumpster fire the Diamondbacks are, but the Orioles, good God. But they beat the Yankees yesterday. Let's see what the... Yeah, Baltimore is... they do need... the ownership's been a problem in Baltimore for... I mean, I don't even know who the owner is. It's not still Williams, right? I mean, they go back to having ownership problems to when Davey Johnson got fired there for doing nothing but win. Back in the early 2000s when the Yankees dynasty was getting started. I'm sorry, not the early, mid-90s. Mid-90s. Guys, I will tell you, I'm a little verklempt this morning. Let's see. What do we got here? Let's keep Carlos going. Keep him going, Carlos. They've got a ton of talent. You know what? they got a ton of talent, the minors, but they don't know how to develop talent, or they make bad trades. Buck is, I disagree. I believe you're talking about my boy Buck Showalter. Buck was the only reason they were competitive for 3-4 years there a while back. Can't. Oh, I don't know. Buck hasn't even been there in 4 years now. How are you going to blame Buck? Ownership, front office. Bad. Well, Buck didn't make those trades. Buck is a manager now. Buck didn't have a lot of influence in the front office, like he did in other places he'd been when he was in Baltimore. He basically was the manager. Jim Duquette. Let's blame Jim Duquette. I don't know. A lot of reasons they aren't doing well. What else is going on here in the American League East, though? Tampa Bay, God, they just keep winning. 8-2 again in the last 10 games. 7.5 games clear of the Yankees. The Yankees aren't catching them. So what the Yankees need to do is finish ahead of the Red Sox in this, or the A's or the Mariners if they should make a little run here. But I think they're done. I think this race comes down to Yankees, Red Sox, and it's going to and what it's all about is where that one game elimination game will be played. Yankee Stadium or Fenway Park. Good grief, it's going to be a long morning, right? Anthony Price is from Maryland, but you're a Nationals fan. Well, they're a bit of a dumpster fire now too, but certainly not of the caliber of the Orioles. So they've done some remarkable things. The World Series run they went on a couple of years ago was phenomenal. Obviously, they're tearing things down now to rebuild, but I'm confident that Rizzo and team over there will get things rebuilt with the Nationals fairly quickly. But the Orioles do just suck every year, Anthony. You're right there. It's hard. I'll talk to you once we meet up. You're going to give me a job with the Orioles? Don't be trying. I don't know, Carlos. Who was for him, Mark? Well, we emptied my cooler. That's all I can say, Mark, or Rip. So we probably overserved each other, I guess. I probably shouldn't blame anybody but myself. That's a bit of a joke. Nationals have like 5 good players now, Carlos. I mean, they just traded, the 2 of the best players in baseball. The Nationals will be back. Let's get back to the American League East. Is Toronto done? I think they are. 6 games. Well, 5 games back of that last wild card spot. It's going to be very hard for them. They got to get on a streak. They got the Yankees coming up. I'll be at Yankee Stadium tomorrow, actually. First time I've been there since COVID hit. I was hoping I was going to get to see Garrett Cole. I thought it was going to be his turn tomorrow, but it's Talion pitching, which is fine. So we're going to have hopefully it'll be a nice day down in the city. So I will be in your area, Carlos, but I won't have a chance to see you, unfortunately. Nationals will be, well, yes, I agree. That's what we're talking about, Carlos. Nationals will be better before Baltimore. The Blue Jays are just, I don't get it. I mean, they should be better than what their record is. They've had a lot of injuries. George Springer has not produced what they thought they were going to get. I mean, Yates getting hurt early in the season left them with no closer. So, Baltimore, or what's his team? The Nationals. Blue Jays are not going to go anywhere, obviously. We can backtrack if you guys have more there. Keep the comments coming. I need them this morning, guys. The Central. White Sox are clear. We keep talking about that. They're playing good baseball still. I mean, they haven't kind of gone to sleep here. They need to figure out their best lineup. They need to figure out the rotation for the playoffs. But again, this team was built to win this year. So anything less than a trip to the World Series is going to make them make this season a disappointment for the White Sox, I'm sure. Blue Jays got hit with the team blues. Yeah. I know some Blue Jays fans, and they got a great manager. I'm going to tell you, I like the manager. I like the front office. I like some of the things that they did this past offseason. It just didn't work out, and sometimes it doesn't because of injuries and things you can't control. But Everybody has those issues. Yankees had tons of injuries, tons of COVID issues. The Mets, we'll get to the Mets later. But every team. Look at the White Sox had some devastating injuries early in the year to Jimenez and Roberts. But they overcame those. You need some depth and some guys who can step in. Carlos says they have teammates fighting, bad coaching, and terrible injuries. So we're talking about the Blue Jays still. As far as coaching goes, I think they've got a really good manager. I do not think this is on the manager. Well, if the team's out of control and fighting each other, well, that does come on the manager a little bit. But again, we'll see. Maybe he'll pay the price. If that's the case, Carlos, then they may have to pay the price. Blue Jays are very young. I will give you that. I mean, one of the things that, well, here's the problem, though, too. Marcus Semien, who they traded for, I believe he's a free agent after the year. He's a great player. Oh, sorry if I got on the air. I thought I hit my mute button. But they do have some really young players who have not played all that great. They're playing better now. Bo Bichette, sons of major league players, right? They got 3 kids whose fathers played in the major leagues and played at a pretty high level. Bo Bichette's dad played with the Rockies and the Brewers. Really good stick. We all know about Biggio's dad. Craig Biggio's a Hall of Famer. Played second base after converting from catcher with the Astros. And, of course, Vlad Guerrero Jr., who is just – this kid has got it all going this year. He's had the best year of those kids for sure, and he's the most talented. So I see the Blue Jays can certainly rebound. Back to the Central. Hey, man, we got Rick. Okay, that's actually a very good – that's a great question, actually, Carlos. That's what it is. These kids all have issues with each other. Well, you know what? Then they need to grow up. they need to grow up and work out their problems, right? Rick's got a good question, though, Carlos, and I'm going to let you – well, maybe I'll let you address this, or no, maybe if you do address it, I'll put it on. Did you have an issue with a bad experience with coaches when you were a youth? Because as we've talked about in the past, there's not many managers or coaches Carlos really appreciates. Wants everybody fired. Sometimes with good cause. Where are we? Where was I? The Indians. Let's look at the rest of that. Obviously the rest of that Central's building towards next year. Again, I can't stress enough. They've had a little of a bad stretch now, but the Tigers are probably a year ahead of where they probably thought they'd be. They could be, a wild card contender next year. It may be hard for them to compete for the division with the White Sox, but they've made great strides with their young team outside of Cabrera, who actually got his 500th home run here this past week, I believe. But A.J. Hinch has done a great job there. And you can't say enough about what they've done. And, the most disappointing team, and who knows, it may cost Rocco Baldelli his job, are the Twins. Just been terrible. Moving out west to Mickey Delaney's Mariners division, if Mickey's with us this morning. I haven't seen him yet. It is a little early out there in the state of Washington. The Astros, 5.5 clear now of the Mariners and the A's. Both the A's and Mariners are tied at 64 and 62. Roughly, what'd I say, 3? I got a wild card. Problem is, it's too damn hard. Now, there it is, wild card. It's not that hard. 4 games back they are. Both teams are 4 games back of the really the Red Sox. For that second wild card spot. So, and both teams have been wildly inconsistent. The Mariners are on a 4-game winning streak to get into this place, the spot they're in right now. But they've only got a 4.5% chance of making the playoffs by, whatever. Whatever rating system ESPN is using these days, and the A's only have an 8% chance. So it's going to be very tough for those teams to get in there. The Angels just never got over the hump. Pitching, guys, pitching. Come on. Angels, you got to stop signing bats and, coaching staff. Oh, we got Carlos's answer here. Coaching staff is essential to build. I'm not sure what that is, but I think I get where you're going. And inspire confidence and team focus. I agree 100%. You sit there with strategies and expectations that are not real, you will fail. Oh, agreed. But, again, I can go to Tom Thibodeau, and he's done all of those things that you just talked about. He changed the entire culture, or helped change, him and Leon Rose, the entire culture of the New York Knicks, and won games at the same time, way more than expected. By the way, this year, if you want to place a bet on something, some futures, bet the Knicks in over 42 wins this year. Starts at the top. Well, we don't disagree. I don't think Rick disagrees. We got important text from Jim Beringer. Oh, I got to check out what he got some other news. He must have hit on the head. Jim Beringer from the Last Word on Hockey just texted me. Anyway, Angels, start looking for some pitching. Let's jump over to the National League. What do you got here, Anthony? Do I think the Red Sox will pass the Yankees? I hope not, Anthony. Anything can happen these last few weeks, but, the Yankees, you got to play more consistent ball than the Yankees have been playing. Red Sox have gotten on a roll again. They won 4 in a row. Let's see. I wonder. How many games they got left against each other? That's probably a good question, eh? Let's take a quick look here to answer. Big series, September 20th or September 24th, Friday, Saturday, Sunday at Boston could determine this wild card situation, I think, in as far as who finishes 1 and 2, Anthony. Right now, Yankees are kind of back to the same problems. I talked about this. A bunch of times and they got hot when Gleyber Torres went out and Velasquez was playing shortstop and playing some small ball and making the routine plays in the field. Wade was playing. They were doing some really good things and playing some really good situational baseball. And Torres comes back in, and things start to go downhill. And you got the same problems. I mean, yesterday one of the big issues was Gary Sanchez had a big pass ball again. He must lead the universe in pass balls. Chapman implodes again. The problems haven't gone away, and they were masked a little bit during this win streak, the 13-game win streak, and winning, gosh, I don't know, 24 out of 35 or something, maybe more than that. But the problems are still there. So can and sales back for the Red Sox, which is a big boost for them. I mean, it's going to be very interesting if they get to this one. I don't want to play, Anthony. I don't want to play in Fenway Park in that 1-game elimination game series, for lack of a better term. This is a series at 1 game, but I think they need to stay ahead of them. I don't know if they can, and I think it could come down to that 3-game series in Boston. Oh my God, Carlos. We'll bring this up when we get closer to basketball season. I know he's talking about Coach Tibbs there. Good morning, Kenny Gifford. Good to see you this morning. We already talked about that, Kenny. You got to get up earlier. What's for breakfast? I kid you. Oh, gosh. Let's move on to the National League here, guys. The National League East. I know Carlos is a Mets fan. Thank you, by the way, Carlos, for the invitation. We'll certainly do something at some point, I promise you. This National League East is whoever gets to play the Nationals and the Marlins and the Diamondbacks and the Rockies go on a big win streak, and the other teams fall backwards. Everybody's on a losing streak now. The Braves have lost 2 in a row, 3-7 the last 10. Still, I got a 2-game lead over the Phillies. But the Phillies had won 5 or 6 in a row. Now they've lost 2 in a row. The Mets won 5 in a row. Lost yesterday. 3.5 games back. I don't think the Mets are going to be able to get in contention here. I really don't. But interestingly enough, these teams are actually in play. One of them could be in play for a wild card spot, the way that the Padres have kind of imploded over the last 6 weeks. The Cardinals have got a 1-game lead for that last spot. The first one's going to go either the Giants or the Dodgers. Just a great race to finish the season out there. Dead heat right now at 86 and 50, both teams. The Giants have slowed down a bit, kept waiting for this to happen. And now it's happened. The Dodgers have been on a good run the last 6 weeks or so since the trade deadline. Excuse me, or maybe even a little bit before. Oh, God. Not a good morning for you to tell me you're having livers and onions with pineapple and coconut. Oh, God. You're part of the rest after 50 years. Oh, and the rest. Get it. You're never just a rest, Rick. Mets have an okay schedule. Yeah, but you know what? They're the Mets. When are the Mets going to get out of their own way? When are the Mets going to stop alienating their own fans? When are the Mets going to get GMs who aren't harassing women and getting, DWIs? Steve Cohen has got to really step up and change. The culture's got to change here. We talked about culture change. We talked about starting from the top. And, the Mets are a disaster. And what they, this whole thumbs down thing to the fans, and they let Baez start this thing. Baez is going to be gone. He's not going to get re-signed. He'll be on with another team last year, and he'll get booed loudly every time he comes to Shea Stadium for these shenanigans. But for Lindor to buy into it, he's got to be here for 10 years. You need to win over the fans, especially in New York, or your life will be made miserable. Miserable. I'll wait for Carlos to kind of comment on that if he wants. Let's see what we got here. Marlins. Yeah, well, Marlins, Phillies. Well, they got to beat the Phillies. They beat the Cardinals. They can possibly put themselves into some wild card contention. And we do have a big series with the Yankees coming up soon as well. You're right. But you know what? You better sweep the Marlins. And you better tell your players to get their head out of their butts. Jesus. What is that? I just don't. I don't know where they think this is a good idea. Fans can boo. I have no problem with fans booing poor play. They can't act like asses like we've talked previously this year. And I've done vlogs on where bad behavior and throwing things and spitting at players and hurling racial epithets. Those things can't happen. But you pay a bunch of money to go watch these guys play. And if they don't play well, you've got a right to boo them. They can't drive in runs. Not scoring runs is a problem. Now, the Mets will get the ground back, it looks like. I meant to look up this morning is what kind of timetable they have. I don't think Drew's with us this morning. But Carlos, maybe you've got an idea. As a Met fan, I don't really have one. Problem is, he's been out a while, and he's going to take some time to build up that arm strength and be able to go deep into games and really be helpful. And Syndergaard could come back, but he'll probably be pitching out of the bullpen, which actually is probably a good thing. They need help in the bullpen as well. I mean, Carlos does talk about the driving in runners being the biggest problem. I mean, I agree. Their offense and the guys who are supposed to carry this team have just been really bad. They brought in here. That's a good, excellent acquisition for the Mets, by the way, Carlos. I like Brad Hand. He's been around this year, though, man. For the money they're paying and the players are making, I'll boo them. Yeah, I don't disagree. You get to do that as long as you do it respectfully. I know that sounds like an oxymoron a little bit, but you can't have the kind of behavior that I just laid out and I've laid out in the past in some vlogs and such. So, Carlos, you give me an idea if you know when DeGrom's coming back, if he's going to be back in time to really help this team. He needs to come back now. He may need rehab starts, and maybe he's got them, or maybe he's doing them. I don't know. Other than that, the Marlins are the Marlins. I feel bad for Donnie Baseball being strapped with that team. He's a class individual. Good baseball man. Good manager. Couldn't get over the top of the Dodgers, but he did a good job out there. And now he's stuck with Derek Jeter, who we'll talk about a little bit. And I don't know what their plan is. And the Nationals, as we talked about before, Anthony Price is a big fan. I think the Nationals will be back, but it may not be for a couple of years as they retool. Yeah, I agree. Look at this is a big acquisition for the Mets. I mean, again, they got him before the deadline, so if they should make the playoffs, he's eligible. I think. No, I take that back. Carlos, you can correct me, but he wouldn't be eligible for the postseason. I think that they acquired him after August 31st. This week's been a bit of a blur, so I'm not really sure. But I think he is not eligible. Late September for DeGrom. Well, if they're still close, he'll help them. But he's going to have trouble after the time he's been out, going very deep into games. And he's used to doing that, and the Mets are used to having him do that. He's not the 5-inning pitcher that so many other starting pitchers have turned into. Anyway, if you're a fan of close races, this is going to be an interesting race down the stretch. The Braves, who I still think are the best team, even though they make stupid errors and they do stupid things, and probably whoever wins this division is going to go out in the first round. Even though I picked the Braves to win, actually go to the World Series. Yeah, well, they were extended. I get that, Carlos, but any additions to your roster are not eligible for the postseason unless they were acquired before August 31st. Let's take a quick look. I can find this really easy enough. Mets. Let's just look at the transactions. It's not that far away, Keith. You can do the work. September 2nd, they claimed him off waivers, so he would not be eligible for postseason play. So, yes, Major League Baseball does expand their rosters, which I'm not a big fan of for September because, it changes the whole outlook at a game when you've got, all these extra bodies that you can kind of throw out there. Well, there are rules for injuries, Carlos, but I don't know all the intricacies of them. But I know there's been plenty of instances where teams have petitioned to get guys they acquired after the deadline onto the postseason, and it hasn't happened. I'm sure it's happened as well. I can remember back in the day, and not that it mattered, but the Yankees got Dave Kingman, I think in 1970. I think it was 1978. He actually played for 4 teams that year. And they petitioned to get him on the postseason roster, and they were denied by Bowie Kuhn. So, there are ways they can get him in there, but just for shits and giggles, the 4th-string quarterback Ohio State is going to make $6 million a year off the new rules. I know. We'll talk about that more in a little bit, Kenny. We're going to talk a little bit about the NIL with Mark Mancini later. Again, as you guys know, I don't want to get on this topic right this second, but I'm still flip-flopping on it. I'm very opinionated most of the time, one way or the other, but I have not been able to get my head around this. I still think there's some advantages for the players, but I can see it just getting to be a total disaster. Let's move on to the Central. I tell you what, the Brewers, they were only 5-5 in their last 10, but they have really creeped into. They're only 5 games having back of having the best record in baseball. that Craig Counsell is the best manager in baseball in my mind. That team's limited offensively. Their pitching staff is lights out. And he's done a great job there. After some early struggles, some up and downs early in the year, the second half of the season, they've just run away from actually a really good Reds team and surprisingly good Reds team. Again, probably a year ahead of where they expected to be at this time. Playing a little bit worse of late, 4-6 in their last 10, but they do still hold a 1-game lead or a half-game lead over the Padres for that last wild card. So great job out of Counsell. Great job out of the Reds. The Cardinals have trying to sneak back in, but I don't think the Cardinals have enough to get there. And the Cubs, you know what the Cubs have done. And the Pirates, look at another dumpster fire. I'm sorry, Mark Mancini, but they just are never going to get out of their own way. We're going to move on to the Dodgers here in a second, so I'll bring that up there. Kenny's still on college. No more leaving college early. When can you make more? Well, that's a good point. But again, let's get into that in a little bit. The Dodgers and the Giants tied for the best record in baseball. For all the Dodgers issues this year and the Dodgers bashing, they've already turned a corner, Carlos. I mean, from the trade deadline on, they've been fantastic. Scherzer was a huge addition. Turner was a huge addition for them. Mookie Betts, I'm not sure if Mookie Betts is back, but if he is, and he was playing second base when they made the trade, which I'm sure he won't when he comes back. He'll be back in the outfield because they'll have Turner and Seager, and Turner will probably play second base down the stretch. Dodgers are going to be tough out in the playoffs. They struggled a lot of this year, but they have their best record in baseball. And, there's a fat bastard of a football coach who shall remain nameless because I can't stand him. Great football coach, horrible, horrible person. You may know him if you're a Giants fan or a Patriots fan or a Cowboy fan. He said, "You are what your record says you are." Well, Dodgers' record says they're the best team in baseball. I'm sorry, it says they have the best record in baseball. I won't say they're the best team in baseball. The Padres trying to right the ship. I mean, they have been in free fall here. Their game, they went from about a 90% chance of making the playoffs here about 6 weeks ago down to 29 right now. Be very, very tough. It's going to be very tough for them to get in there. The Reds are playing some good baseball. It's going to be a good race between the Padres, the Reds, maybe the Phillies or the Mets jump into that wild card race for that second spot, but I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure they can get it done. Lastly, let me take a look at what other news I want to chat about here in baseball. Hold on. You guys can certainly continue to comment. What's Carlos got here? Oh, sorry. Thought he had something up. I was looking at an old one. Important. Derek Jeter finally gets to be inducted into the Hall of Fame this coming Thursday. I did a vlog about this on Friday. If you're a Yankee fan or you're a Derek Jeter fan or you hate Derek Jeter, watch it. I think Derek Jeter gets a bum rap maybe outside of New York. I hear guys all the time, most overrated player in baseball when he was playing. Come on. You guys look at just numbers, and Derek Jeter's numbers are really good, by the way. Derek Jeter was one of the best players in the game because of the intangibles, the leadership that he brought to that team. They had a core four. That dynasty. Well, it was a dynasty of 3 out of 4 World Series in the late 90s and 2000 of Andy Pettit, Mo Rivera, Posada, and Jeter. I think I said Bernie Williams accidentally Friday. And And I would argue that Mo Rivera is probably the most valuable player of that era. But Derek Jeter was a guy out there every day, and he played the game the right way. The thing that upsets me about people that think Derek Jeter's overrated or don't like him because he's good looking and he's got ads, and when he wasn't married, he was he wasn't out there publicizing his social life the way, say, Joe Namath did, or even A-Rod did. But people love to bring guys like that down. And Derek Jeter is what's right about sports. It's the same argument with Tom Brady. And I can bring up other examples, but they're very similar to me. We look to bring guys down for zero reason. The things that are right about sports, we look to bring them down for anything. Ray Lewis can get a job on TV in a heartbeat after, I'll be careful what I say here, after being involved in a very, very tragic situation at the Super Bowl in Atlanta in 1999. How involved is up to debate, but I have very little doubt that he was there in my mind. But we love him, and we listen to what he's got to say like it's important. I am not going, Rick. I had planned on going last year before COVID hit. But with it being on a Thursday, and it's just not going to be feasible to go. I would love to go. I mean, I suppose I could end up there riding out there on a whim because it's only, whatever, hour and not even an hour and a half away, hour and 20 minutes. I would certainly love to do it. Did you go for Rivera's? That would have been awesome. I did, and I remember Bernie playing the national anthem. Bernie's a tremendous musician, and he's put out some albums since he retired, and another class individual. That team was made up of. That's why they won. They won because of character. Everything that's wrong with Yankees today, and wrong with baseball today, they did. High character guys. High character manager who stayed out of the way of the really good players and let them play. Good starting pitching, good relief pitching, solid defense, and timely hitting. There wasn't guys hitting 40 home runs on that team. Jeter was and is a class act, unlike that third baseman who played. I agree 100%, Kenny. 100%. A-Rod's another guy. How is A-Rod so fawned over by the media still today? I mean, he's the face of their baseball coverage. Why? Phony. Derek Jeter wasn't a phony. I think they make you wear shoes at the Auto Saga. Kenny, not sure. Kidding. I would have loved to have gone. Love the Auto Saga, especially this time of year. What a great place to play golf in the fall. Fall golf is the best to begin with. The Auto Saga, I'm assuming that's where you're playing. It's a great place. Oh, Carlos, tell me how you can stick up for A-Rod other than his numbers. Other than his numbers, which I'll give you. Tell me that A-Rod can hold a candle to anybody else that I've brought up as far as the intangibles that they bring to the game of baseball. Remember, Derek Jeter's play against Oakland in 2000 and maybe 2000. I don't remember the year. Bad throw from right field. Jeremy Giambi trying to score. Derek Jeter, where no other shortstop would ever be, anticipating a bad throw, and he gets the guy at the plate. Nobody else makes that play. A-Rod doesn't bring that type of awareness to the field. Drew, how are you? Good call. I agree with you, Drew. But the problem is with making that broad a statement is we don't know who the guys are that were cheating that never were brought up. That's part of the problem. We'll never know who was. And nothing would surprise me. It would surprise me if I found out Derek Jeter was, on PEDs, but nobody else would. Oh, you're going later in the month. Let me know when, and we'll see if I can. It's the Oda Saga? Reach out to me, Kenny. We'll talk about that. I love that course in the fall. Oh, my God. So he helped the Rangers in contention, Carlos. But how is that? And again, yes, Royd enhanced numbers for A-Rod. Good point. Look at it. Here's the thing. And it really ticks me off. And it goes to Drew's point a little bit, right? Most of the guys that there's certainly some lower tier guys that got penalized and are still getting penalized for trying to get ahead using PEDs. But when I see guys that don't need to, like A-Rod's got plenty of natural talent and doesn't need steroids. Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa. Well, maybe Sammy Sosa was a steroid invention in total. Roger Clemens. Barry Bonds, Hall of Famer, before he did put a needle in his arm or rubs whatever he did. But he's got to. I don't know how we got on this so long, but let's see. I miss him. The irony is most of the biggest offenders didn't even need. Well, that's right. Exactly. I mean, there's plenty of little guys have been caught through the years, right? But the big names that we know about, it was foolish. Barry Bonds. Now we've really gone off the rails here, and it's okay. Barry Bonds started doing steroids because Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa were they were hitting home runs, and he didn't like the fact that he wasn't, talked about enough. Barry Bonds was a Hall of Fame player without ever using a needle or whatever. Oda Saga. Talk to me about that sometime this week, Kenny. Let me know the date. A ton of players have been on drugs, and we're not caught in baseball. True. You know why? Because we come up with testing, and they find a way around it every time. There's guys, I guarantee you right now. And there were guys before this. I mean, there's other ways that players were enhancing their ability before the steroid era, before the PEDs. I mean, if you want to use it as the literal context of performance-enhancing drugs, greenies and speed that the guys were using in the 60s and probably even the 50s, performance-enhancing drugs. But they felt they needed them to get through the dog days. No, I get that. HGH was new, but again, you can go back into time and there's always been something they've used. Babe Ruth used hot dogs, which took 36 minutes off his life, every one of them. Braun ruined the sample collector's life, right? That's a good point. I don't know if the guy's name ever came out. Maybe it did. I don't remember the story. I remember the story. I don't remember all the details now, but I do know how he screamed and yelled. It was, tainted and blah, blah, blah. And the guy took it home and, took it around in his car like it was a Stanley Cup. And a lot of it wasn't accurate, trying to save his own ass. Bonds blew from skinny guy in Pittsburgh to a monster. He had a head the size of my freaking computer screen here. Now he's got a normal sized head. I can, I don't have to be a doctor to know there was something going on there. Use of drugs is, I agree. It's always something. Again, going back in the day, it was a greenies and guys wanted to play longer. That was the thing with the HGH. I mean, that's the big thing. The greenies going back to the 50s and 60s. I mean, it didn't really help guys play that much longer, but it helped those guys get through the dog days. Again, playing a lot of day games in the heat and, a more condensed schedule, I think, in a way. Double headers, which we don't have anymore today, real double headers. Again, not to excuse it away, but it is different. I mean, the HGH and the things they started using now were to lengthen their careers. You didn't see guys, except for rare examples, Ted Williams and Stan Musial, having great years at 40 years old like you do today. And get contracts. Well, that was part of it, too. It all comes back to money, which Kenny Gifford will tell you. Yeah, again, the guys we know about specifically, right? Because there were tons of guys. Don't forget, there were tons of guys. If you watch the Major League transaction wires or wherever they would put these things that were suspended, minor leaguers, because how were they going to compete? The only ones we really knew about were the guys who became headlines, right? They became headlines, so we knew about it. It does give more power to the rest. The rest is the person. Agreed. You still got to be able to hit the baseball. You got to have some talent, right? Steroids will not turn me into a Major League Baseball player. And it wouldn't have. I'm 61, so I don't think it's going to happen now. But I don't think it would have happened back in the day. Right? You had to have some talent. Balco guys. Yeah. All right, enough about the drugs. What else is going on in baseball? Not much I want to really chat about. We're done with the Hall of Fame. I think we'll move on. It's 9:50. I want to do some NFL stuff and jump into a few NFL things and jump into some college chat before Mark Mancini comes on. Guys, the NFL, first thing. Little switch up on this year because I don't want to spend a half an hour doing our picks. We'll review the picks, but I've set up a portal on ESPN for us to be able to do the picks against the spread the same way we did last year and invite more people. I'm hoping Carlos gets in there. I know Kenny's in. I think Rick is in. Hopefully Drew and Billy. Haven't seen Billy this morning, but he did message me yesterday. And Mark and Sean will get in. There's some new people in there. And I've offered up a $100 Amazon card to the yearly winner this year. So the only stipulation is anybody that wasn't in it before and is new to us, I will be making sure they are a follower of the show. And I hope they'll invite their friends. And guys, I hope you, by the way, will invite your friends. Go to the TGI Sports Talk page and invite your friends list. Anybody that's a sports fan, invite them. That's how I got to close to 1,500. You already got your picks in? Hope you took the Patriots over the Dolphins, by the way. We'll talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about some news in professional football. I got to talk about, let me just go around. Is there any real news? Tom Brady came out and said he had contracted COVID after the Patriots parade. Crowder for the Jets tested positive. His status for week 1 will be up in the air. Tannehill has been reactivated after having COVID. And sadly, former wide receiver for the Patriots, David Patton, passed away. David Patton was a huge contributor to the Patriots' early part of their dynasty. Not a well-known player. I can tell you he caught one of the biggest touchdowns in Patriot history, though, near the half. Just before halftime of that first Super Bowl win against the Rams. And David Patton, again, one of the reasons I say Tom Brady is as good as Tom Brady is, other than Gronkowski, there may not be a Hall of Fame skill position player that he played with his whole career, at least not with the Patriots. Randy Moss, but they didn't win with Randy Moss. And that was only a few years. David Patton was a decent player. He was the kind of guy the Patriots went and looked for at that time. They won Super Bowls, multiple Super Bowls with Patton, Givens, Brown, who was a really good player, but not a superstar. And guys like that. Deion Branch. It was with the spread always. Maybe I changed it. I don't know. But I wanted to be with the spread, Drew. I did set it up that way. It's a little confusing. ESPN is a pain in the neck bad. I wish I'd done it somewhere else. Troy Brown's great player, will not be in the Hall of Fame. Love Troy Brown to death. Troy Brown did some things on the football field that were extraordinary in big situations. Big punt return against Pittsburgh in that same year. They won their first Super Bowl in the AFC Championship game. That kind of turned that game around. They were losing. And he returned a punt for a touchdown that really kind of turned that game around. But David Patton, rest in peace. My condolences and TGI Sports Talk condolences to your family and friends. Just a great loss for sure. What else? Let's look around football a little bit. I want to look at a couple of the quarterback situations that are developing or in flux. How the hell did I get there? All right. Obviously, if we go through real quick, the Bills, no quarterback situation. Although I think Mitchell Trubisky will be able to rehab his reputation and his career backing up Josh Allen. If he gets to play, you're going to see that it was Nagy that messed this guy up. He's got NFL starter capability in my mind. Whether that ever happens, he's going to need the right situation, and we'll see what happens with him. I will, if you want to make a bet on that, Carlos, Troy Brown, who I love to death, will never be in the Hall of Fame. Never. I wish he would be. But look at Julian Edelman's not going to get in the Hall of Fame. And if he's not, Troy Brown isn't. Did I clear the spread with Billy? He has some interesting ideas. Yes, we're going with 1/3 points. Billy. Quarterback situations. The Patriots cleared theirs up. You guys can make some comments. I don't think we had a chance to chat about this last week. Well, I guess we wouldn't have. The news broke this week. They released Cam Newton, which I think was a good move because I think Cam's leadership ability is greatly lacking with his wandering off campus and being disallowed from practice for 5 days because of the protocols. And you know the protocols. He knew the protocols last year when he put himself at jeopardy of getting COVID and got COVID. The Patriots don't deal with leadership issues, especially at the quarterback situation, and they haven't had to at the quarterback situation for the past 20 years before last year. You can't have a guy like that as the leader of your team. Plus the fact he can't play anymore. You don't see teams beating down his door, do you? Where's he going to play? Houston? Have fun. Mac Jones is the quarterback of this team. I saw no sense in the plan, any plan that had Cam playing 4 games and wasting 4 or 5 games to let Mac Jones ease his way in. Get him in there, get through the hard times. There'll be some struggles. There'll be some up and downs. This team will struggle out of the gate most likely, but at the end of the season, whether they make the playoffs or not, they're going to be in contention for a playoff spot. They're going to be a really good team by the end of the season. They're going to put Mac Jones in a position to succeed. And he'll struggle, like I said, but they're going to be an exciting team and an interesting team going forward. And that quarterback situation now is cleared up, except who will back them up. Because we don't want it to be Hoyer. And maybe, well, we don't want Hoyer. Hoyer got released, and I believe he's either been re-signed or will be re-signed to the practice squad. So Garrett Stidham is the backup, at least at the moment. I would expect they bring a veteran in to potentially back up Mac Jones. The Jets, obviously, the quarterback situation is clear there with Zach Wilson going forward. Wins and losses aren't important, Jet fans. It's just progress. Don't worry about his numbers and don't worry about wins and losses. The Jets are heading in the right direction. And the Dolphins, I'll tell you what, I'm not sold on Tua, and I know a lot of people in Miami are not sold on Tua. This is a really good football team who could take a step back because of that quarterback situation. Interestingly enough, they did sign Jacoby Brissett, who I like a lot, and I would love to see in a backup situation here in New England to be their backup quarterback, and he is a very capable player. What do you got? What do you got? Anthony Price. You know, the quarterback battle with the Bears, it's a little bit different than, say, the Patriots, because the Patriots made a lot of moves this year to make themselves competitive now and really competitive next year. So I can see throwing my quarterback in and letting him take his lumps because the team around him is going to get better. The Bears, I think they're lacking talent at other positions that will really hurt Justin Fields if he's playing out of the gate. I have no problem with him playing Andy Dalton because Andy Dalton's a better quarterback, number one, than Cam Newton right now. He just is. And you'll get some capable play. You're probably going to struggle. The Bears are probably going to struggle, and I think they're probably doing the right thing with Fields. Do I think Andy Dalton is better than Justin Fields? No, but it's probably okay and the right thing to do for them to start him right now. Oh, Carlos, you're starting with me again. They're going to win 9 games. I understand that. But he'll be a rookie quarterback this entire year who will get better each and every game and learn from his mistakes. One of the team loves lots of things about this guy, and it's not just his talent and his arm. It's his ability to bounce back. Every time he's had a bad practice, a bad scrimmage, he didn't really have any bad preseason games. He comes back and just turns the corner on that, turns the page. And he leads the team. He's really got great leadership ability. They love the way he's commanding the offense. And they're going to dumb down the offense to begin the year. Nagy will kill him just as Shanahan did. Nagy, again, how – and this goes back to Anthony's question as well. The big question there is Nagy. How do you let him ruin – I still think Mitchell Trubisky it could have been a solid NFL starting quarterback. Do I think he'd be one of the, Patrick Mahomes? No. Did they make a bad move moving up to get him? Yes. But I think he had potential to be a good quarterback, and Nagy, I think, ran him off the rails. And how you give him the keys to another franchise quarterback is amazing to me. They should have fired him in the offseason. I can't say Mac Jones will. I will say the Patriot offense led by Mac Jones will score 20, 24 points a game. They're going to run the ball a lot. They're very deep at running back. And they're going to play, ball control offense. And their defense is really, really good. And could put the offense in position to score points. It's all conjecture. I've got to see him play, and again in real games, Carlos. But I have a very high confidence level. Yeah. Andy Dalton's the best option for Chicago right now. Yes, but again, I think the situations are totally different. Come on, he wasn't going to make any money. Unless he played, and he wasn't going to play. He should not be playing because he can't play. I don't care. And also don't care if it's a financial move, Carlos. Happens all the time in sports, especially football. Right. It costs him about $1.5 million, I think, to cut him now. Don't care. I will agree with you. Alabama doesn't have a history of producing great quarterbacks. They have produced some. Joe Willie Namath. Probably the most overrated quarterback in NFL history, but he played okay. Kenny Stabler, Hall of Famer, Super Bowl winner. That's about it. I don't know if I can go any deeper than that. Chicago is just another team. Right now they are that I think that division's going to come down to the Vikings and the Packers. Vikings, if they get good quarterback play from Cousins, then maybe they overtake the Packers. I don't know. I know, Rick, you're a big Vikings fan. I can't see a team led by Kirk Cousins really making that big a move. I think Zach Wilson will be better than Trevor Lawrence this season. Yeah. This season's hard to tell. Again, I don't think you can judge probably either one of these guys. You probably don't need to judge by the numbers they put up or the victories their teams have. I think Jacksonville and the Jets are both heading in the right direction, and their fans just have to be patient. Both Namath and Stabler played under Bear Bryant. Yes. Bart Starr went to Georgia. Oh no, wait. Let's see, was he Alabama? Oh, wait a minute. I thought he was a Georgia kid. Let's find out. See, Rick might know if he's paying attention here. Bart Starr. Let's see where he went to college. Of course, the short thing stops that he played college at University of Alabama. Good call, Kenny Gifford. Pretty good quarterback there. 16 played in the NFL. And I don't know how good they were other than the three guys we just mentioned, though, Kenny. Throw a couple other names at me because I know Richard Todd was not a good quarterback. Had a couple of decent years. No, well, again, it's not about wins and losses for these two teams. I'm assuming we're talking about the Jags and the Jets. It's not about wins and losses, Carlos. Not this year. I think both of those guys are going to be really good NFL quarterbacks. Wait a minute. Now you're asking me how many Savannah kids are great quarterbacks? I can't find that information that quickly, Carlos. What other quarterback situations you guys want to talk about? I'm glad you guys took control of this conversation. Dolphins, as I said, I don't think they've solved their quarterback their situation. The Browns, let's go to the north and move through this quickly. I want to get into a little bit of college talk before Mark Mancini comes on at 10:25. The Browns obviously don't have a quarterback situation. It took me a long time to get sold on Baker Mayfield, but he seems to be there. The Ravens, until they catch up with the games the game and the way Lamar Jackson plays it, they'll be fine. The Steelers have a quarterback situation. Ben's too old. Ben can't move, and they do not have an heir apparent there at all. And the Bengals are in good shape with Joe Burrow, and now adding Chase to his weaponry will help them. The Colts, listen, I think Frank Reich can turn around Carson Wentz. Back up. Yeah, I think we had these conversations all last year, Drew. I was not sold on Baker Mayfield, and I talked about it doing picks last year. And I'm not sold, and you're right. Maybe their scheme, they don't need to be. They run the football really, really well. And they put him in good situations to succeed. The coaching staff there is exceptional. Exceptional. Titans, they're not, they're fine with Tannehill. I'm not a big fan, but they're fine. The Texans are a dumpster fire. They don't have a quarterback because Deshaun Watson's on the roster because he needs to be, apparently. He hasn't taken any reps, I don't think, in practice. He's just there. Oh, Saban. How did you get Savannah from Saban? That's awesome. Washington will be the biggest winner this year. Well, you know what? We haven't got there yet, but if Fitzpatrick, I think Heineke will take over that quarterback situation before the year's out from Fitzpatrick, and I think Washington's going to win the East. because their defense is so good, and they just need their quarterback not to lose games. Since Aaron Rodgers might be leaving next year, I'm not sold on I'd love to be the starter. And I don't know that any Packer fans are, Anthony. I think it's going to be an interesting year there. Rodgers has split the locker room. Rodgers has split the fan base. And Rodgers has created a mess to have to navigate for this NFL season. So if I'm Aaron Rodgers, if they fail this year, it's on him, in my mind. Talked about Kenny. I love Washington. I love Washington this year. That defense is so good. It's the best defense in football in my mind. And I think if their quarterback play is, and they got some weapons on offense, by the way, at wide receiver and at running back. And if the quarterback play is okay, they're going to be fine. I do think, as I said, Heineke will be the starter there before the year's out. Kenny would trade Rodgers right now. It's possible if he plays well. I mean, Fitz has got a history of playing well his first year in places, for sure. But he also has a history of making bad plays at bad times in games. And we'll see. I mean, again, it takes some chutzpah to turn the team over to a kid like Heineke, who doesn't have a lot of experience. And you got a team that's capable of winning the East and getting to the playoffs. It's just where I think I am. I got the wrong banner up too, don't I? Oh, man. Let's finish this up. What else you guys got on quarterback? I'm going to go through this quickly because I do want to talk a little bit of college football before I bring Mark on. Where's your comments? I lost them. Would rather, you know what? Deshaun Watson is never playing in the NFL again. Never playing in the NFL again. Well, the coach is terrible. That's something new from you. I will tell you, made a horrible call in the playoffs, so I'm not going to argue with you there. Yeah. He's smart. NFC West is just unfair for all in the division. Yeah, you know what? The NFC West is very hard to pick a winner. I like the Arizona Cardinals to really surprise out there this year. I think Kyler Murray will take a step up. There are no real quarterback situations there. You got the Jimmy G and Trey Lance thing, and it looks like they're going to use Trey Lance a little bit the way the Saints use Taysom Hill. I'm sure I'm saying his name wrong. But Lance has looked really good in some of their training camps. That's a good division, though, that's for sure. The Saints, talk about quarterbacks, they got an issue. I'm not a Winston fan, and if Sean Payton can make this guy into a winner, then he's the best coach in football. Panthers, who knows? I really think Sam Darnold could have a much better year this year, getting out of New York, getting a fresh start. And I wouldn't sleep on the Panthers. I just wouldn't do it. Tampa Bay, certainly no situation there. Falcons, Matty Ice is the guy until he's not. What I missed? The Eagles, look at Jalen Hurts is not the answer. I don't think. I know Jamie Peggs, the Philly sports guy, thinks he is. Watson and Cuomo can work at McDonald's together. Yeah, $15 an hour. Seattle will win that division. Russell Wilson's going to have to carry him. That's the big problem there, is that Russell Wilson. You're killing me, Kenny. Yeah, I just think it's a good situation for Darnold. I think Matt Rule is he's taking a little heat in Charlotte, I guess, but I think Matt Rule is built to do well in the NFL. Giants, Danny Dimes. Look at he's got to produce this year or it's over. Cowboys, their quarterback situation is fine as long as Dak is healthy. We talked about the Bears. We talked about the Vikings. The Lions, they're going to find out that their quarterback, whose name is slipping my mind, good grief, here we go, doesn't take long, Jared Goff is not, an NFL. No politicians. Where did I get? Did I make a political statement? I might have. I have, but I've slipped here and there. And I think that's pretty much covers what I want to talk about there. Let me just jump in before we got 10 minutes before I want to switch gears. Unless you got anything else on the NFL? I don't. I'm excited. Season starts on Thursday night. As he said, get in the football pool, guys. We're going to have some fun. I'm just going to be pushing it this week. Yeah, I'd love to have 20, 25 guys in there. Send it to your friends, right? Send it to your friends. I want to get the whole idea is I want these newbies that I've reached out to get in this thing to be followers of the show. And guys, please invite your friends to TGI Sports Talk. You can invite them to the pool, but invite them to the page. If you don't know how to invite people to a page, reach out to me and I'll show you. It's really easy to do. And I want to keep this thing going. I want to get to 2,000 followers by the end of the year. It'd be awesome. Watts is in Texas in a steamer, they're done. He'll never play again. Let's move on to the NCAA. I want to go down to top 25 scoreboard real quick before we get Mark Mancini in here. This was really interesting games this week, and I may touch on. I got the show Wednesday night. If you wanted more college football, we're going to do a little bit less on Sundays because of the Wednesday college football huddle show on TGI Sports Talk. But we are still going to talk about the big games. In the top 25, Ohio State got a really good push from Minnesota on Thursday night, but they ended up pulling away and winning by 14. It looks like C.J. Stroud will be a capable replacement for Justin Wilson. Whether he'll be or Justin Fields, whether he'll be as good, still remains to be seen. What did I say, friends? Sorry, I'm fresh out. You got to stay out of jail. Utah, big win over Weber State, not a big deal. Arizona State rolls over Southern Utah as they should. In a game that, oh gosh, Carlos, I talked about this on Thursday night. I mentioned it. Some of you guys weren't here early on my college football show, and I may get called out on this by Mark Mancini too. Wednesday night, I talked about how North Carolina at 10 was overranked. I thought they had a good football team. I liked Sam Howell. I thought Sam Howell was the Heisman favorite in my mind. Well, no longer. I talked that whole night that they were going into Blattsburg, Virginia, which was a tough place to play, and especially coming in there as a road favorite in game one. And I said all that stuff, and I turned around and I bet North Carolina, and they lost to Virginia Tech 17-10. Very, very poorly played game. Carlos mentioned that it was very, nobody's going for Watson. Middle Tennessee, Carlos's sleeper this year. They won. I was going to look for that game in the non-top 25. The refereeing, I think it was, I guess it was Kenny I was chatting with us about. I will say this. The refereeing in that game was horrendous, but if you guys watch me and listen to me enough, you know that I say you cannot let referees beat you. If you've put yourself in a position to get beat by the referees, and North Carolina did, then it's your own fault. They didn't play good football. End of story. Alabama, fortunately, did not let my heart get in the way of my head, and I did not take the 19.5 points that Alabama was laying. My favorite college team these days, Miami Hurricanes, because they just destroyed them 44-13. It was never a game. It was like 27-0 about halfway through the second quarter. Oklahoma survives a huge scare against a pretty good Tulane team, 40-35. Big scare. Alabama had its game in control, and Tulane came flying back with 13 unanswered points in the fourth quarter, but couldn't quite get over the hump. In a huge game last night, Georgia and Clemson, I thought this game was going to be a shootout, and the defenses just took over. Georgia wins this game 10-3. I do not think this hurts Clemson's playoff chances even a little bit. The only way it could have hurt them is if they gotten blown out. It's an interconference game. It's week 1. They're both in the top 5. Clemson's probably not going to drop that far, and it's very easy to drive back up. And as Carlos has pointed out, and I'm starting to be a believer, I did pick Penn State to lose as well. But if you remember, I picked UCLA and I picked Iowa. So the 3 games I have bet so far, and I may bet Florida State tonight, were I bet North Carolina, UCLA, and Iowa. Penn State win was crazy. I know we didn't get there yet, but I will. I'm just trying to catch up on some of your comments. Mac Jones, I don't know. He's done a great job, Kenny. As I said yesterday in a comment to you, he's done a great job of recruiting. He's done a great job of turning his program around from where they were. He had a bad night Thursday, I can tell you that, but I don't know if I'm ready to say he needs to retire. Texas played well. Let's see if this is anything important. It's Mark Mancini. 5 minutes for Mark. Keep your comments coming here. The Penn State game was a great game. 2 really well-matched teams. And Penn State played well. And again, in another tough environment to go play in. So they win 16-10. I'll get back to your comments here in a second. Let me get through the rest of the top 25 here at least. Again, I don't think Clemson has really hurt themselves in the playoff race, right or wrong. Again, why you don't need preseason polls is because, they're going to lose this game and drop to 8, and they can easily move back up. Texas A&M rolls over Kent State. Really good team for Texas A&M, but they're playing a nobody. Iowa State, who I love, I think will win the Big 12. Struggled with Northern Iowa yesterday, but gets away with a win. Cincinnati just rolls over Miami of Ohio, 49-14. Oregon gets a scare from Fresno State, which I had also kind of been on. There was like 20 points. I didn't pick that game, but they kept that game close. Florida rolls over Florida Atlantic. USC, I thought San Jose State might give USC a little better game. They did not. 30-7. USC is probably going to play just well enough this year to save Helton's job one more year. UCLA, who I have said is going to surprise a lot of people this year and be in the Pac-12 championship game, has a big win against the LSU squad who wanted to come back in a big way from last year's disappointing season. And UCLA prevails 38-27. I love UCLA this year. Iowa, who I like a lot as well. Kirk Ferentz does a great job. They've added a little bit of more of a vertical passing attack to the rest of what they do. They like to pound the football. They're still a bit old school, but they've added a little bit of dimension to that offense, which will only do them, provide them well. Washington Huskies, 20th in the country, beaten by Montana 13-7. Sorry, Mickey. Mickey's not with us today. Maybe it's because he stayed up and watched that game. And Texas does get by. Number 21, Texas gets by Louisiana Tech easily, 38-18. I thought Louisiana would put a scare in Texas. This might point to the fact that Texas under Steve Scarsazian is ready to finally become the team they're supposed to be. Let's look at some of your comments here. We will take a look at some other scores if we have a minute. Texas did play really well. Carlos, good call there. Oregon won by yeah. Fresno State's got a really good offense, though, Anthony. So I'm not sure how bad the Oregon offense is, but they certainly didn't. God, if I see one more liver comment, I may have to turn the camera off and leave for a bit. Right, let's get the muffins out. Coastal Carolina does start their season with a win. Mickey, you signed in just soon enough for me to say your Huskies were awful yesterday, getting beat by Montana at home. How can it happen? Let's look at a couple other scores while we my sneaky team is University of Tennessee. Got a lot of fun. I got a lot of people that work with me and for me in Tennessee remotely, and they're very happy on Rocky Top today because they get off with a good win. Let's look at a couple other games while we're waiting on Mark. That's all last week's. These are all still considered week one. This is a pain in my neck. Okay. Coastal Carolina, huge, big win over the Citadel, which is not a really good team. But look at Coastal Carolina, 22nd in the country. They need to kind of show last week, yeah, sure wasn't a fluke. They got a lot of guys back. And I guess Kenny doesn't like the – yeah, Rocky Top, you know, they could surprise. You never know. Tennessee is they're always a confusing team for me. Utah rolls over Weber State. I said already. That's UCF with a nice comeback win over Boise State. I like UCF. You guys know how much I love the AAC. And nice win for Army last night. Or yesterday afternoon. I watched a little bit of that game. That was fun. Am I in, Drew? I didn't know that we're at the playoffs. We're starting. Sorry. I wish you were in there with me. I've had a good run here the second half of the season, and I'm excited to be in the playoffs. Thank you. Army, you're right. Jeff Montkin's a great coach, right? How much longer he'll be at Army is really debatable because he's a really good football coach. Ball State, don't sleep on Ball State, 31-21 over Western Illinois. Buffalo, a big surprise last year with a big win yesterday over Wagner, who I don't even know if that's it might be an intramural team. South Florida brutalized by North Carolina State. There's a team to be careful of and watch out for in the ACC. I know it's not a really. See you, Drew. Have a good night or a good day. I'm going to tell you another pick. Oh, anyway, NC State I think will surprise again if it's in a weak ACC. We know why. Appalachian State wins over East Carolina. Appalachian State's going to be Miami Hurricanes' first game at home, and I think it's next week. Hurricanes better come ready to play some football. Appalachian State is really, really good, and they may end up with the most highly ranked team outside of the Power 5 conferences. See, Davis not interested in that. Tennessee, as we said, nice win over Bowling Green. I'll catch up on your guys' comments here. I'm just going through a few other things here. Charlotte with a nice win over Duke. A comeback victory for the Charlotte Hornets. I don't know, Charlotte Hornets. I don't even know what their nickname is these days. Looks like Mark's coming in. Let me finish up these. Is there anybody else I want to mention? Michigan State gets off to a nice start over a Northwestern team that is a little bit depleted this year. A lot of great. Pat Fitzgerald is a great coach, but he's got a lot of holes to fill from last year. Colorado gets off to a good start. We talked about this game. Cincinnati, I mentioned. We talked about them. Looks like everything else is top 25. Michigan gets a nice win. They really needed to win big. They get a good win over Western Michigan. Boston College rolls over Colgate. Well, don't sleep on Boston College. Kansas State in an interesting matchup over Stanford. They win. We mentioned the Army win. Nice win for them. Nebraska had to be Fordham. I mean, I think it's an intramural team that they're fielding over there. Auburn got to beat Akron by a bunch. They do. Carlos's team, Middle Tennessee, with a big win over Monmouth. You can't get too excited about some of these wins though. But all in all, it was a wacky win or wacky season. Let me look here quick before I bring Mark in. Bear with me 1 minute, Mark, while I check these. Mississippi State did not look good. You're right. I didn't get to that game, but they did, and I have my doubts about Leach performing in there. I didn't see the Michigan State uniforms. We'll have to check that out. But with no further ado, for the first time on video, or at least my video. Mark Mancini from Mancini Media. Hello, Mark.
How are you, brother? Man, live from Los Angeles.
You're looking good this early in the morning.
Yeah, a lot of coffee.
You gotta keep the coffee going, brother. Welcome. Thanks for being in, Mark. We're going to talk. I've been running down some games from yesterday, a wild Saturday in college football to get started. I want to talk about the season in general. But actually, before we go, let's talk again, since people can actually see you now and I can share the comments. You'll be able to see the comments now as they make them, by the way. Give us a little, as I like to let you give a little plug for where we can find your stuff, because you're everywhere, man. You're the hardest working man in sports.
Well, I appreciate the compliments, but I'm just a bit, a piece of a big puzzle here. I'm part of XM Sirius on Fridays, KMET 1490 on Saturdays. We go in about 3.5 weeks on WWDB AM 860 out of Philadelphia. We're working on something out of Tampa. And, I host the Pittsburgh Pirates podcast Mondays and Fridays. Yeah. I got an early one tomorrow, too. I got to get up at 6:30 in the morning. The Pirates got an afternoon game really early there and playing Detroit. So that should be interesting. But just a bunch of great shows. And, we keep adding some more. And I know you're part of that wild one out of Alcatraz on Thursdays.
Oh. Man, my head stopped spinning about Sunday morning after being on with those guys. Because they are a rush. I got to tell you, they're fun. They're a lot of fun. But we appreciate you coming on. Before we jump into kind of our overview of the season, which I've talked about a lot, but I want to get your input. What's your big takeaways from yesterday? There were some crazy games, a couple of big upsets, and some disappointments. What sticks out to you?
Well, first of all, it's going to be Georgia. I look back in 1980, and I haven't seen the Georgia Bulldogs do anything since Vince Dooley was, walking the sidelines. He had Buck Bellew and Herschel Walker, and they were, challenging for, a championship. But, boy, that was a shocker, beating Clemson and shutting down Clemson. But the other one had to be UCLA. But I've seen this dog and pony show by UCLA before. They always start out like they remind me of the Miami Dolphins. They start out 3-0 or 4-0, and then somewhere during the season they start to lose games and they forget the season's a little longer than they anticipated. But got to give credit to Chip Kelly, man, beating the top 15 team the first time that's happened in about 6 years.
Yeah, I'm really high on UCLA. I talked about it on my college football show Wednesday. I liked them a lot yesterday. I made a bonehead. I've beaten myself up here on the show, and I told you to call me out. I told Carlos to call me out. I talked about how
you did good.
I was 2 out of 3 in the wagers I made, but the stupid one I made. I mean, I shouldn't even have. I just bet it because the game was on. I'm like, I'm going to take Carolina after saying everything possible to turn people off from betting Carolina against Virginia Tech. I turned around and make a bonehead move. That's a tough place to go play. And Virginia Tech, they played pretty well. North Carolina played really bad. Refereeing was bad, but I'm not a big believer in letting referees beat you. Can't let yourself get in that position. But that's a disappointing loss for North Carolina for sure.
Yeah, Howell looked like a pedestrian, man. I don't know what.
We're going to talk about the Heisman contenders. He was my number one contender, and he's got to start from the bottom now if he's going to try to get back in this race.
Yeah, keep your eyes on Alabama. They keep churning out quarterbacks, young 4 TDs. I mean, unbelievable. But I like the kid in Arizona State, Daniel. He's a big one. I like him. I like Herm Edwards, what they're doing there. Keep your eyes on the Sun Devils, man.
Yeah, what about, I mean, I like the way they were moving the program forward, and Herm Edwards was moving the program forward. What about all the things going around the program, though, with the NCAA investigation, 4 coaches leaving the program just this, spring and summer? Is that going to play a factor into their success or lack?
When something like that happens, you think, Jesus, a ghost of Jerry Tarkanian circling the wagons there or something, but you got to kind of say to yourself, you got to, rally the troops and, kind of block out the noise. I always say, there's naysayers are all around. You got to look at them like, pylons. You just got to go around with put the, ice in the veins and get the earplugs in the ears and block it all out and concentrate the task at hand there. And I think they're doing a good job of it.
So do you think, I do think that this is a year, Pac-10 is going to be sneaky, or Pac-12, excuse me, is going to be sneaky good this year. I like UCLA. Oregon, I think, is going to be okay. They struggled with Fresno yesterday, but Fresno's got a really good offense, so I'm not surprised that was a close game. I think USC is going to be a better. I think this is the year they got a chance if things break right. And as Carlos has pointed out here, one of my loyal followers, the ACC is not that good. It's a year the Pac-12 may be able to crack their way into that playoff.
Well, when you look at the USC last year, they started out, they beat Arizona State. I don't know how they beat them in the first game, but, they dodged some bullets. They played Arizona, and then you saw what USC was made out of, down the stretch there. They got, waltzed. But they start out strong, 30-7 over a San Jose State Spartan team, and they put up, I think, 17 points in the second half on these guys. But that's a gimme game. But the real test is going to come this weekend. Oregon goes to Ohio State, and keep your eyes. Washington makes a trip to Michigan, I believe.
They do. Actually, that's going to be a big game. Oregon's got a big trip to Ohio State, I think, next week, too.
So you're going to really tell a lot about, how good the Pac-12 is. Now, if they come out of there unscathed, then I might be buying stock in them.
Mark, so Rick Sherlock, who's a big Georgia fan, I have to qualify this. How do you see number 5 beating number 3 as a shocker?
Well, Rick, the first thing you got to look at, it's the first game, get it out of the way. If you're going to get a loss, get that out of the way in the first couple of weeks. You don't want a loss towards the end of the year, but, we're going to find out. I need to see more of Georgia. I've seen a lot of them in the SEC championships, and they've laid an egg. So, they start out strong, just like I got to see more of UCLA. But, like I alluded to before with UCLA, I'm a big Chip Kelly guy. Just couldn't crack the NFL, but, boy, he did wonders at Oregon.
Yeah, Carlos is on the other side of this. He doesn't see Georgia staying in the top 10 very long. I think it's a great win for Georgia. I don't think it hurts Clemson. As I've said all along, this game, the loser of this game, unless they got blown out, it wouldn't hurt their standing and their potential to be in the playoff, because they're going to drop from 3 to 8, and it's going to be very easy for them to move back up with a string of wins going forward. So I don't think.
What about my boys? Pitt just smashed UMass like 51-7.
Is UMass, is that an intramural team, or do they have a team that's actually playing in the league?
I'm trying to think of that basketball player that came out of there years ago that played in the NBA that came out of UMass. Oh, Dr. J.
Oh, that guy. Yeah, I remember. He played a little bit of basketball. Yeah. He was okay. Too bad he wasn't on the football team. I mean, outside, so we all know who the main contenders are, right? Year after year, we got Alabama, we got Clemson, we got Georgia. Texas A&M is kind of crashing that party a little bit. Ohio State, obviously. I mean, outside of and you can give me the teams you think will get there. They're a little early, but we got to make these prognostications, because that's what we do. But also I want to know, who do you think could slide in there and crash the party for some of these, knock some of these big boys out?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It's not going to be Notre Dame. I don't think Notre Dame is going to go places this year. But keep your eye. I mean, Oklahoma. You got Spencer Rattler over there. We're going to find out what Steve Sarkisian can do at Texas. They're it's going to be, Clemson, has a loss, but, they're going to be, but I'll tell you one thing, when the dust clears, I think, you're going to see Nick Saban get another title there in Tuscaloosa.
Well, that's picking the chalk. Give me a guy that, if there's one team that's not being looked at, let's say they're outside the top 10 right now, that can crash that party and maybe wreck Nick Saban's trophy presentation, who would be the team you would say they got a shot of making a run?
Well, I thought it would have been Washington, but you know what happened there. So
yeah,
because you look at Washington, the program seems to be a very consistent one. When I look at Washington, USC will find out. I got to, Clay Helton's a rah guy. They were sitting there. I liked LSU with Ed Orgeron. He brought back a few guys, but you can't come west and give up 38 points and expect to contend for this thing. So I think I look at Washington, LSU, USC, and maybe if UCLA goes up 3-0 on Fresno State in a couple of weeks, you got to throw Chip Kelly in the mix here.
Yeah, Kenny Gifford says UCLA, and that's my outside pick right now. If there's going to be a big party crasher, I mean, the chic pick is going to be Cincinnati, right? Because they've knocked on the door the last couple of years. They got a really, really good program, and I'd love to see. I love that league. If you listen to my shows at all, I talk about the AAC a lot. There's some really good football programs there, and I hope with all this realignment and whatnot, it doesn't, that they don't get swallowed up and just disappear into non-relevance. But I love that.
I don't know what happened to Miami, man. Miami was, coming on. And just to get torched by Bama like that was a shocker.
There was a lot of talk I'm a Miami fan. And there was a lot of talk in the offseason about Manny Diaz has taken back over the reins of the defense and calling the plays as the head coach, and because that was his forte. He had when he was the defensive coordinator for Mark Richt, he had some really good defenses. It was the offense that hurt them, but their defense yesterday was as bad or worse than I've ever seen it. And the other thing that bugs me, and it bugs me in sports in general, they're down 27-0 yesterday. They recover a fumble. And they're over there on a sideline with that freaking whatever they call the chain, the chain gang.
Yeah,
and I'm
swag
the
chain.
turnover. Yeah, I mean, come on, you look at the scoreboard, and you shouldn't be celebrating a turnover when you're down 27-0.
Well, I'll tell you the program that's really slipped a little here, and they could be looking at 0-2. What happened to the Stanford program, man? I don't understand that at all. I mean,
I love the
drive
coach.
from Harbaugh running it. And also, John Elway playing there, and Luck and all these guys. I mean, I don't understand what happened to this program. This program's kind of fallen on hard times.
Yeah, David Shaw, he's a really good coach. I thought he would have gone to the NFL by now, actually. And I think he's one of the
somebody stole his playbook.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's a shame because they had a really good run going from Harbaugh's time right through David Shaw's first, 4 or 5 years probably.
Yeah.
But they have taken a step backwards. I'm gonna give UCLA. I'm gonna say the Pac-12 crashes this party. UCLA will probably get killed by somebody in the first round. But this brings me to another topic that I want to chat about, and that's the expansion of the playoffs, which is, even with the realignment, I don't think it's thrown things off. That we'll have at least a 12-team playoff, which I'm excited about. I'd rather see it be 16 and include all the conference winners and 4 wild cards. That's what I'd like to see. Because people go, well, who wants to watch Coastal Carolina or Liberty get blown out by Alabama in the first round? Well, how's that any different than Alabama blowing out Notre Dame in a semifinal game? I'd rather watch the little guy have a chance to knock off Goliath.
Not only that, if you expand it to 16, you're right, it covers everything. And, we get out of this debate where a number 5 that last year we thought should have snuck in there ends up being on the outside. I think it was Texas A&M, should have been in there. And we dragged Ohio State into this mix and stuff. So there's a lot of things to behold, but I've always said in college football, and I catch a lot of flack on this, but if you want to be a top 10 team, then you need to play a top 10 schedule. And I grew up with the, Nebraska's whacking the Pacifics. I've seen, the Davids kind of slay a Michigan here in Appalachian State beating Michigan. But I mean, I know the small schools need the money and the recognition, but I get it. I really get excited with college football when I see top 10 teams playing top 10 schedules.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's what you need to do. And, it'd probably be like Major League Baseball. Start bracing these small market teams in a division, so the people in those cities can get excited. The traveling's, near each other, and they're in it in September. They're not on the outside looking in, but
Yeah.
I need to see Bama start playing the Ohio States, in the regular season more and more. The USC's playing, a Michigan, rather than just in the Rose Bowl and everybody gets together on a nice day in January.
Yeah, well, we saw some of that yesterday with UCLA and LSU, right? And with Clemson and Georgia, obviously. Those interconference games. And here's the problem. We'll touch on this a little bit. Is with all this realignment and these conferences just getting bloated, there's going to be less and less opportunity for some of these interconference games to even get scheduled because they're going to run out of room to fit them. So another downside, college football is a regional sport, Mark, right? It has national interest, but it's a regional sport and it's built on regional rivalries. And the first round of this realignment back in 2012, I think really hurt college football. And I think this one with teams from Oklahoma going to play in the Southeast Conference, which, again, geographically, it makes no sense. It just hurts the game.
Well, not only that, how about the Nebraska football program? I mean, these guys are trying to find themselves back in, where other than being lost in the desert. I mean, I remember growing up watching the Nebraska-Oklahoma games on the day after Thanksgiving, along with the Penn State games. I mean, it's funny how it's all changed.
Yeah, I agree, and it's not what I if I had a time machine, and again, it's my cranky old man syndrome, right? Yelling at the kids to get off my lawn. We put these conferences back the way they were. Yeah. I want to watch Nebraska, Oklahoma every year, not every 10 years. I do play this year. I think they play next week, actually.
I think you might be right.
Yeah, but I used to love that when I was a kid. The day after Thanksgiving, we had Nebraska and Oklahoma every year. We had Texas A&M every year. But now we don't get those because
I remember right after that, after the Friday games, the Saturday would be the traditional one out here, USC UCLA.
Yeah, we'll still get that one, but who knows? With the way things are going, we may not end up with that game being played every year because when they expand, I mean, Alabama can't even everybody in the SEC can't play everybody every single year, right? You can play the teams in your division, but you can't play everybody. And I think these teams getting so bloated, how can you be a conference champion and never have played Alabama, for instance? It can happen.
Yeah, you're right. And not only that, when you look at LSU down the line, they got Ole Miss, they got Auburn, they got to go to Alabama. I mean, they got a tough row. Ed Orgeron, great guy and everything, but man, oh man, you got to really circle the wagons now and get this team. You'll get a breather before you get into SEC play, but still, you got to take these teams apart before you get in your own conference and start playing games.
Yeah, before I touch on it, I want to be Carlos brought up another great rivalry, Red River rivalry. And that'll probably continue, but it depends. If they don't end up in the same division, they won't be able to play every year when they move to the SEC. So,
you're exactly right.
Yeah, and back to Ed Orgeron. I like Ed Orgeron. He seems like a good guy and a class individual, but I just feel, he caught lightning in a bottle a couple of years ago. He was in trouble, if you remember, before that season. He was just close to being out. I mean, but he caught lightning in a bottle with Joe Burrow and Chase, the wide receiver, and a really good football team. And I wonder if he's going to be able to repeat that at LSU before they run out of patience.
Yeah, I got to know him real well, and it's amazing. That was that run in 2019 where they won the championship, and I think last year, they finished 5-5. They just could never get on track. But, when you get a championship under your belt, you get a few seasons, and, it's going to be interesting. And, the big question there is before he went to LSU, how come he wasn't, given the full-time position at USC? Because I think he would have really built something out here.
Yeah, he stepped in when Scarskazian had to step away, right? Yeah, he did a really good job, and I know that he was very disappointed not getting that job, and I think some of the fan base was as well.
Well, not only that, you had some great, coaches. When you saw Pete Carroll get out of there, Kiffin was here, and Then you had Sarkisian, and then with Orgeron there. I think any one of those three would have done a better job than what's going on with Clay Helton. I like Clay Helton's personality and everything.
Yeah.
But I just feel like, with all that talent at USC under his duration, you got to do something. I mean, you look at USC's wideouts and everything. Last year they had some great guys. I mean, you got to catapult that, man, and you got to utilize that strength.
Yeah, and he's been on the hot seat, it seems like, since he's been there, but they do just well enough where they can't fire him, and that's it. I think a lot of USC fans are afraid that they'll do just well enough this year that they got to keep him around for another year.
I'll tell you one thing, if he sits on that hot seat a little longer, it's going to be extra well done.
I burned the buns yesterday. That's interesting. Another thing that's really a hotbed of conversation right now, and I'll bring it up because we've had some comments here, is, how the programs are all going to be affected by the NIL. I'm Mark, I usually get very opinionated. I can come up with a solid stance on one side or the other almost every issue. I'm weirdly wishy-washy on this one. I understand that these kids, the NCAA has made billions of dollars off these kids' backs for years. I think it might help. I still think it might help level the playing field a little bit, because maybe the kids who are willing to go to Alabama and be a third string offensive lineman because I still can get drafted to the NFL, maybe in a pipe dream, might go to Coastal Carolina where they can, number one, start and get themselves a little bit of endorsement money. But it's also ripe to be abused, by the boosters and whatnot. What are your thoughts on this whole NIL thing?
Nobody really says anything when an athletic director or a head coach is making $10 million a year.
Yeah.
But I look back when Johnny Manziel put the Texas A&M program on the map, and you got your last name on a jersey and you can't even reap the benefits. To me, that's unconstitutional. Now, I've heard it on both sides, where people say, well, the education of Stanford, is, outshadows, jersey sales and all that. But at the same time, if I buy a kid a hot dog, how come their program's going on, the sidelines for a season or so? So I think you're going to start to see, with all these conferences breaking away, I think the NCAA is going to be a relic now. You won't see them as much now. They're going to go by the wayside. Case in point with the TV contracts that we saw with, the Texases and, the Notre Dames and stuff years ago. So I think, you really got to get these kids paid somewhat. A lot of people think it's going to be going by the way of the NFL where, kids shouldn't get paid, but if a kid puts a program on the map, I think he should be getting a little bit of compensation for that, regardless of the scholarship. And what happens to these kids that get injured and then their scholarship goes by the wayside? So, the university, kind of turns a blind eye to that. So to me, I'm for the kids, get them some money. There's a lot of money being made in college football. I know a lot of people say, well, what about the gymnastics and everything? Yeah, that you got a point there. But as far as college football and college basketball, these guys need to get paid.
Yeah, and that's where I am on that one side. But then I get on the other side where the NCAA, number one, says they can't be used as an endorsement enticement, as a recruitment enticement. But it's gonna be. How can it not be when you're recruiting and a coach is going to say, well, as far as NIL money, you're going to make more money as a starting quarterback of Alabama or Coastal Carolina?
Well, not only that, we grew up with, 4 bowl games on New Year's Day. Now you got like 45 of these things. It starts like, Hanukkah in December sometimes. Yeah. So
and nobody in the stands.
You got the Alamo Bowl, you got this bowl, that bowl. And as much as I like to see my Pitt Panthers get in it, come on, man, don't bring a 4-5 team into a bowl game in North Carolina playing, Wake Forest or something when I know they're going to get beat because they didn't even have a good year. If you're going to bring a team into these bowl games, make sure they're at least above the Mendoza line.
Yeah, it's all about filling up the TV schedule for ESPN, I think, in November and December. And there's nobody in the stands at those games. If you look, I don't know. I mean, it's all TV money that props it up because, there's
not only that, they'll give you a broom, shovel some snow or something. Hey, we'll give you a free seat to the game.
Yeah. Back to the NIL. Kenny Gifford had talked about it. He's talking about $6 million for a four-string. I think he means quarterback. And I don't know if it's $6 million, but I think he's referring to the high school recruit that Ohio State has got coming in for next year. Right. He's not even on the team, and he signed $1 million NIL already. Now, so you're starting to, and there's a guy, and it might be this guy. I'm pretty sure it's this kid. He's not even going to play a senior year of football in high school to kind of protect, himself. And I don't know if that's the slippery slope thing that I'm talking about, Mark, is it seeps into that type of thing where you got kids, you see it in the college ranks now, right? Kids sit out bowl games because they want to protect themselves and not get hurt for their draft status. Now you're going to see kids in high school sitting out their senior years so they can protect their NIL money before they get to college. I don't know.
Well, it kind of reminds me of college basketball, the one and done rule. I mean, that's another one. I mean, you want to keep kids in college. These guys win a title, they're not coming back. And case in point, all you got to look at is in this backyard where Barkley had a banner year for USC. He would have been the number 1, number 2 quarterback going in that draft that year, decided to come back to USC, and his stock plummeted. So that was, the wake-up call for a lot of these guys are basically saying, hey, you know what? We're going to go chase the money. We're not going to stay in school, regardless if we have an opportunity to win something.
Yeah. Well, Mark, I'm going to wrap it up today with putting you really on the spot. We talked earlier about who we thought would make the playoff, and this may, I hope, be the last year, because I don't think it's going to be 5 years before we got at least a 12-team playoff. I think it'll happen the next year or two. There's too much money involved to wait. I'm going to give you my predictions for that Final Four. I'm going with Alabama. Rick will like it. I'm going to take Georgia to come out of their second team out of the SEC. Oklahoma, and my outsider is going to be UCLA from the Pac-12. How about you?
Well, I'll drop UCLA. I'll drop Georgia out of there. And I'm going to throw a couple other teams in this mix here. That I'll tell you, if they can keep the belt rolling here, people will say, man, Mancini, you're crazy. You might be the world's worst handicapper. But I'll tell you one thing. I like North Carolina to bounce back. If they can get in there and bounce back, it's going to be a tough road. But I like North Carolina. And I'm going to throw a real outsider there. I'm going to go with Arizona State.
Interesting. You do have the Pac-12 getting in there, but Arizona State, that's, you know what? You got to love Herm Edwards. I love Herm Edwards as a human being and as a football coach. And I would like to see him have that type of success. It would be fun to see. So,
well, not only that, like Chip Kelly said, now you got to finish the games. And, I'd like to play for a guy like Herm Edwards. I mean, I think he makes you better as a man and makes you better as a player.
It's going to be fun. I mean, we saw yesterday, this is why I love college football, because every weekend there's crazy stuff happening. And I'm excited to see that. I'm going to have to come up with a new Heisman pick. I guess it'll be Shane Rattler now that Sam Howell's kind of taken himself out of the running already. But
keep your eye on that guy in Alabama, young Bryce, 4 TDs.
They set an Alabama record for first-time starter, I believe, yesterday. So good start for him. Anyway, Mark, thanks for coming in today. It's awesome to have you on.
I love it. I'll be back next Sunday, brother. This is a show that's sweeping the country, man.
With your help, good job, buddy. It's great to see you on camera finally, and and not having to worry about making sure I got my Bluetooth on my phone.
I just got to make sure that on Thursday you got a life vest going over Alcatraz.
I feel like I'm wearing an anchor sometimes. All right, Mark. Thanks a lot.
Have a good one, my brother. Stay safe. Have a nice Labor Day.
You too. Bye-bye. Thanks. Mark Mancini from Mancini Media. And you saw all the outlets that he is on. Check out his shows. A lot of fun. Oh, gosh. Listen to the Left Turn at Alcatraz show. If you go to Mancini Media, or podcast radio, I think, too, you'll find all of his shows, whether he's on them or he's producing them. there's a lot of fun shows there, and I've been on at least half of them now. And I've become a sort of a semi-regular on the Left Turn from Alcatraz Thursday nights. So it's pretty interesting. Kenny, you're right, by the way. Before we go, if Notre Dame goes 11-1, they'll be in the playoff most likely. I don't see that happening. I know you're a Notre Dame fan. I just think they got too much to overcome, and they can't reload as quickly as say an Alabama or whatnot. I loved Ian Book. I know Carlos is going to. Dispute this, but I think them losing their almost their entire offensive line and Ian Book is really going to set them back a little bit, which is why I like Florida State tomorrow night, actually, with the points, or tonight. But they got a great coach, and they're going to be competitive, and it could happen. That's a great thing about college football. All these preseason polls, and why I don't like preseason polls, the very reason I said Clemson didn't get hurt really yesterday by their loss is the fact that they're already rated third in the country, and they're not going to drop that far by this loss. So preseason polls, we shouldn't have them. Wait 2 weeks, then have a poll. Anyway, guys, great weekend, great game, great show today. Thanks for all your participation. You guys make this show go on Sundays, and I appreciate all of you guys and all of your comments and keeping the show rolling, especially on a day like today where I'm struggling a little bit. So I hope you guys have a great Labor Day weekend. Weather's going to be a little iffy today, but I think tomorrow might be better. I'll be at Yankee Stadium tomorrow. I'll wave to you. I'll probably go live at some point just to say hi. Who knows what my internet connection will be, so it might be a little choppy. But I'll see you. When will I see you again? Wednesday night with TGI College Football Huddle. And we'll be on Friday with maybe just me doing my Patriots preview. Not sure yet, but I'll have a promo soon. Talk to you soon. Keith Engel, TGI Sports Talk on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. You guys have a great, great day. Keith Engel, and I'm out of here.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, you guys any